Brittany Murphy was a beautiful and talented actress full of promise. Her shocking death at the age of 32 was followed just 5 months later by the equally puzzling death of her husband. Both died young of similar mysterious causes. What happened in that house in 2009? Was this a crazy coincidence? Or was there something more sinister at play? What was behind the tragic deaths of Brittany Murphy and her husband, Simon Monjack? Every sudden death is shocking, but when Brittany Murphy passes away on December 20th, 2009, and the coroner declares that she has died of natural causes, it creates a huge stir in Hollywood. How could this happen to a vibrant 32-year-old? When a second, more detailed report is released 2 months later, it's determined more specifically that Murphy died of pneumonia, anemia, and drug intoxication. Then, just 5 months later, her husband, Simon Monjack, dies in the same house in a very similar manner. The tragedy of Brittany and Simon is now a great mystery. As the years pass, questions continue to fester. True crime vlogger Stephanie Harlow has long been intrigued by the case. Harlow highlights 2 strange details that lead people to believe there is more to the deaths of Murphy and Monjack. First, there's the couple's behavior in the months leading up to their deaths.
Simon legitimately thought that somebody was watching them. He told Radar that he had 56 cameras inside the house, outside the house, down on the cul-de-sac. He even showed Radar a scrambling device that he and Brittany had installed so that somebody couldn't listen to their phone conversations. He believed that he was being put under surveillance of some kind.
Secondly, there's the independent inquiry launched by Angelo Bertolotti, Brittany Murphy's father. After Brittany's death, Bertolotti wonders if his daughter has been poisoned. When Simon Monjack dies a few months later, his suspicions grow. He reaches out to forensic pathologist Cyril Wecht to investigate further.
Mr. Bertolotti obtained a strand of Brittany's hair. He submitted it to a laboratory in Colorado, and he obtained the results. He sent that to me for my analysis. The results show 10 heavy metals at significant levels that several instances are well beyond the levels permissible by the World Health Organization.
While the lab report cannot definitively say that foul play was involved, Bertolotti believes that Brittany and Simon have been victimized.
I'm quite sure Brittany was poisoned, yeah. So that's what I think.
The question now becomes, who would poison them and why? After the deaths of Brittany Murphy and Simon Monjack, Angelo Bertolotti is approached by a woman who we'll call Sarah. Sarah is a former government employee and a whistleblower. She claims that Murphy and Monjack were being targeted by powerful people before their untimely deaths.
She worked for Border Patrol. She was stationed at the San Ysidro border crossing, which is one of the biggest in the United States. She claims on July 4th, 2004, there had already been a memo sent out telling everybody to just keep an eye out, saying, hey, we got some intel that there might be some heavy terrorist activity, people trying to come into the country. She claims while she was working the border that day, she saw for herself several people being waved through the border. So she wanted to let her superiors know this, and allegedly she went to the office of the people she would normally tell, but because it was Independence Day, July 4th, they were closed. So she went above their heads.
Sarah claims that because she exposed a serious security breach at the U.S. border, the government subsequently persecuted her, her family, and her friends, among whom were Brittany Murphy and Simon Monjack.
Allegedly, they tried to deport Simon. That's why Brittany married him so quickly in such a secret ceremony. They were bugging their phones. They were watching them. They were threatening them. She claims that her and Brittany were tight. They were friends. And as a result, Brittany became a target for the U.S. government, who were also the people who were trying to make her life a living hell.
If this seems too fantastic to believe, it's probably because it is. Sarah's claims of friendship with Brittany Murphy remain unsubstantiated.
There's no evidence that she and Brittany ever knew each other. The only thing that can be found that connects the two is a letter, I believe, that she sent to Brittany asking her to kind of speak on her behalf. And Brittany's publicist sent a letter back pretty much saying, like, Brittany doesn't know anything about this. Thanks for, reaching out, but that's a no from us. That's the only connection that can be made between these two women.
However, Bertolotti believes Sarah's story.
He said Brittany was afraid to go home because of the sneak and peek incursions and other terror tactics that she suffered due to her speaking out in support of Whistleblower and being named as a witness in the case that Homeland Security had brought against Whistleblower.
In 2019, Bertolotti dies of natural causes, leaving no one close to Brittany to pursue Sarah's outlandish theory any further. The presence of heavy metals in Brittany's hair sample can point to causes of death other than foul play.
Additionally, the heavy metals could have been present in her hair for a multitude of reasons, including hair dye, and she often dyed her hair.
There are also environmental factors. Brittany Murphy and Simon Monjack share their West Hollywood mansion with Brittany's mother, Sharon Murphy.
Before Simon died, she and Simon went on a lot of shows and they talked about, Brittany's death. After Simon died, she thought, there's mold in the house.
Black mold is notoriously destructive. It can cause a variety of health problems, including pneumonia and even paranoia.
There did seem to be some water damage. The house was located at the bottom of multiple hills. With the water draining down, you'll often find water getting into the foundation and the walls of the home, which can lead to mold. There's also a water heater in the attic that had leaked and caused a flood in the house, and people believe that the mold could have come from that.
So where does Sharon's mold theory lead?
There's a lot of controversy with this. So allegedly the coroner's office had asked her, well, can we come in your house and test for this mold? And she'd said no. She denies that ever happened. She says she never restricted access to the house for them to test for the mold.
After Brittany's death, television program Inside Edition pays the house a visit. They noticed something strange.
And they said that it looked as if there was plastic sheets hanging, as if there was some mold removal going on.
It's quite possible that a mold test was done, but for legal reasons, Sharon isn't talking about it.
Additionally, Sharon did sue the house builders and successfully, it settled. If Sharon did settle with the house builders, there may be some sort of non-disclosure agreement. If there was mold in the house, it could have potentially caused the illnesses.
The paranoia caused by mold intoxication could explain Simon Monjack's odd behavior before his death. People have speculated that Sharon Murphy made up the mold story to hide the truth.
A lot of people think that Sharon had something to do with what happened to Brittany and Simon, that she poisoned them. I definitely am not one of those people. I would ask the question, if there was black mold in the house and if it was responsible for what happened to Simon and Brittany, wouldn't Sharon have gotten sick? She was the oldest one. As a result, she would have had a lower immune response. So you have to wonder why the one person who probably would have gotten sick from this the most or the quickest never got sick from the black mold.
These speculations about Sharon are driven mostly by her strange relationship with Simon after Brittany's death.
There was rumors that after Brittany died, Sharon and Simon were sleeping in the same bed. She was interviewed after Simon died, and when she went into the master bedroom, she referred to one side of the bed as her side of the bed. And it was weird that they continued living together after Brittany died. However, they may have still been looking at the other person as the only tie they had left to Brittany. You don't know how people grieve or how they cope.
Despite popular speculation, no evidence links Sharon Murphy to any wrongdoing, and police have never considered her a person of interest in their investigation. If Brittany wasn't poisoned and she died of natural causes, how did a healthy young woman get so ill? One other theory about the deaths of Murphy and Monjack involves a deadly virus they may have contracted on a movie set.
The month before Brittany died, they had gone to Puerto Rico to film a movie called The Caller. When they got there, I guess she was only on set for a day before she left the movie. Now, the movie initially said that they had asked her to leave the project because Simon showed up and he was drunk on set, and she defended him when they tried to make Simon leave. Simon just had his lawyers contact the people who were doing The Caller and say that they had to retract that statement and say that it was a mutual parting. She ended up staying in Puerto Rico with Sharon and Simon for, I believe, 10 days. And when they were flying back, it appeared that both Simon and Sharon had gotten sick while they were in Puerto Rico. And Simon got so sick on the flight back that I believe they had to make an emergency landing to get him to the hospital.
Brittany Murphy, however, is not affected by the virus.
In December, when she died, she was sick, and she'd been feeling sick for several weeks leading up to that. So it could have just been the bug from Puerto Rico got to her, and it just took a while to catch up to her, and her immune system became weakened by the fact that she was anemic. Why did Simon die 5 months later from similar circumstances when he'd already had the bug? She was sick, she died, but then 5 months later he dies from something similar, which would kind of argue against the fact that it was a virus.
So what really happened to Brittany Murphy and Simon Monjack? Stephanie Harlow feels the explanation could be far more simple.
I don't think that there's any foul play involved. I don't really think that there is much that says a third party had something to do with their deaths. I don't think that's the case here. I don't think that there was mold in the house, or I think Sharon would have gotten sick. I think that they had health complications. I think that Simon was a controlling person. According to Simon and Sharon, Brittany had been sick for weeks before she died. A lot of people speculate that Simon didn't want her to go to the doctor. He wanted her to stay with him, and he was going to be the one to take care of her. Simon and Brittany were into holistic healing. They weren't the people who are going to go and run to the doctor as soon as they get a sniffle. You know, they're going to like drink some colloidal silver and hopefully, feel better. And it was only when she was getting sicker that she finally did make a doctor's appointment, and she died just before she was going to go to the doctor. I think both of them had compromised health, and their immune systems were just too weak to fight it off.
We may never know what caused the deaths of Murphy and Monjack. Brittany Murphy's legacy lives on in her body of work, her star having burned out too soon.